Well, thank you everyone for joining this morning. I know we're going to have a few more folks join here shortly, but we'll go ahead and get started. And we are recording this. And if you have questions throughout, we want this to be interactive. So feel free to ask questions. And as we go through and as Michael and Kate are demoing the KanBo solution, then I'll be fielding those questions. So feel free to make this working demo and ask specific questions about your organization. But thanks a lot for joining today. This is Improving Work Management in SharePoint and Teams with KanBo. My name is Christian Buckley. I'm the founder and CEO of Collab Talk. I'm based out of the Salt Lake City area. And I've got Michael and Kate from KanBo. Hello, Michael.
Hello, this is Michal Sobotkiewicz, the CEO of KanBo. And we look forward to this webinar.
And I'll just, and hopefully that forwards through. There we go. There's my information here. So if you do have any questions following this, feel free to reach out to me at cbuck at Collab Talk. And of course, you can find me on Twitter and the Buckley Planet and elsewhere. And just a little bit about Collab Talk. So we're an independent research and technical marketing services company. I've been in the SharePoint space really officially since 2005 and was at Microsoft for 3.5 years and part of the team which is now Office 365. So I've been around a while and happy to help answer questions there. And Michael, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Michal Sobotkiewicz. I'm the CEO of Object Connect, a company that has started developing KanBo 6 years ago, or even 7. Yes, now it's 7 years ago. And since then we've done over 100 projects in SharePoint and Office 365. But in the last 4 years, our concentration is for KanBo. And it seems that it's working good because we are receiving awards and recognition, and also our client base is rising. And this is actually where all our passion goes in.
Oh, excellent. And does everybody see like the slides that are forwarding? Just want to make sure that it's seeing, because in my previews it's frozen. Okay, just want to make sure. Excellent. Thanks again, Rolf. First to answer from the attendees. And then just a little bit about KanBo. So actually, Michael and I met 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago. While I was out in Berlin, and so he reached out. I was presenting at the user group and said, hey, I'd really like to show you what we've been working on. So at that time, Michael, I know you remember, there was very few people that were talking about social collaboration inside of SharePoint. SharePoint was sorely lacking of any of those capabilities. And so I presented at the first European SharePoint conference, which took place in Berlin, and had one of the highest rated sessions on doing an assessment of social technology and where SharePoint was lacking, and saw a demo of KanBo. And one of the things I was really impressed by early on was the fact that, like, so Michael, you had a laptop plus I think it was an iPad, or just some kind of remote device, and then your phone. And so you were actually showing a demo, moving in between these different devices and showing in real time kind of this roll-up portfolio view using this Kanban tool in SharePoint. Very impressed by that. And I did a blog post, which to this day is still one of the most read articles on my blog. And so I know you get a bunch of traffic over from that article still. But it's just amazing to see month after a month, as people go and search for information about project management, work management, extending the capabilities of SharePoint, and especially around Kanban, that they find my blog post and then head over to your website, which is very cool to see that.
Yeah, it was a great momentum we had there, and it keeps on holding.
Yep. So just very quickly, before we jump into demo, and I hand off to Michael and Kate here, but I just wanted to kind of set this up, and I've got like I think 3-4 slides here about the way that collaboration has evolved. So from those earlier days where there was no social capability within SharePoint, it was you're very much a Swiss Army knife solution. You would have to go and customize and build to get that kind of capability. And that was a wonderful thing, as when it was this more of a platform as a service type model. I mean, it may have been your IT organization offering it up as a platform as a service that would say, hey, we'd buy SharePoint, we'd go and build to suit. And part of the problem is that different teams, different companies work in different ways. And one of the lacking features in SharePoint was having visibility across all of those areas where you may be working. So, I mean, this was just a common problem that I thought was going to be solved with SharePoint 2013 when they had the whole My Tasks view. The ability, like if there was a project plan or somebody assigned a work activity to me somewhere within the SharePoint environment, that all of these things would roll up into the My Tasks, the My View. Well, it got confusing. They kind of killed that capability. It was never done. And then, of course, there was the Yammer acquisition. There was the Wunderlist acquisition. There's, kind of all these capabilities. And now there's all of these other solutions that are available, and Microsoft Teams come out. There's just so much that's out there. But it all comes back to this issue of finding the right tools and capabilities, whether it's out of the box or a third-party tool that you install or a service that you subscribe to that you integrate in, that you find the tools that will best fit the culture, the way that your team, your organization works. And so that is something that is so critical to overall adoption of the platform. So even though we're very excited by all of the latest capabilities that Microsoft is producing, it's literally weekly. There are new features that are difficult to keep up with. I was just talking with another long time, 15 plus years as a partner in the Microsoft ecosystem, and the CEO was asking me yesterday, like, how do you keep up with, like you, Christian, keep up with all of the updates that Microsoft is coming out with? And I kind of shared like what I do on a daily basis, and he thought like there was this secret to keeping up with the rapid pace of innovation. It's like, no, you have to focus on your culture and what your business needs are rather than chase every piece of technology that's out there. When you're focused on the business, focused on your team culture, then it'll be more clear when you see the solutions that will best fit those needs. And it really kind of comes down to this. There's all these options that are out there. I like to share this slide just because I think it is so important that organizations think about how these different pieces come together. And I think, KanBo fits perfectly within this story as well. That, where Microsoft is going now, they've actually made it very easy for, solution providers to now plug into this context of groups and then the solutions that are within that. And Michael, I know you'll go through and you'll talk a little bit about that and kind of where KanBo fits and across the different the areas. But the groups as a construct that organizes like the security groups, the management of the personnel through Azure Active Directory is such an important a way to look at how Microsoft is now introducing new features, new products within Office 365. You've got the construct of the group. Let's say everybody in our company is a member of this group. Let's say there's 100 of us that are in our organization. We're part of that company-wide group. Well, we have all of these different products that are available within the group, through the group. And when now Microsoft releases a new product, like Microsoft Teams, it plugs into that group's construct. And we know that, well, because we're all members of the the KanBo group, the Office 365 group, we're all part of the company, we now have access to that new capability, that new product. And so similarly, I know KanBo gets in and actually leverages, as these capabilities are added, the things that make sense that inside of that, that SharePoint work management activities that tie context to, or add context to the work that you're doing, then KanBo goes and takes advantage of those things. So, I mean, you've got all these different solutions that are out there. Of course, we've got, the groups and the Outlook conversations capability. You've got Yammer that's out there. You have the new SharePoint experiences and the new Microsoft Teams, all different ways that your end users can go and engage. But the question always comes back to, how do we tie all these things together? How do we have and maintain visibility to all of the work that's being done? And I think that's where KanBo fits in, perfectly to help tie those things together. And that's, I just wanted to set that up of, it's kind of the, which tool do I use when, how do we have visibility, how do we, get context to the work that we're doing and have visibility across all of those projects, all of those areas where I am involved across my environment. And so as far as the demo, so I'm going to hand this off over to Kate. Kate, you ready for this?
Actually, it's me. It's going to be me.
Michael, you're going to take it next?
Yeah. Good. Okay, so thank you very much, Chris, for the introduction. And just to continue from there, the problem that we are solving, so the problem that we were solving back then when there was only SharePoint was to ask ourselves, like, based on our experience, like how much of a SharePoint infrastructure is really being used on a daily basis. And the conclusion was that 80% of the clients that we were working with were using SharePoint as we call it, as a colorful drive. So actually something like a file share with a web interface on it. Some of them also used workflows and also used tags and search and stuff like that. But most of it was just for sharing files. And back then we realized that that once you have a storage of files, it's rather hard to change its structure without making copies of the documents. And then we wanted to create something where actually you could create context that contains communication, that contains people, timelines, tasks, documents, basically all of those little pieces that you need to actually go on in your professional life, whether at work or whatever you do. And it also should be as generic as possible, that you can use it for many purposes, not only tied to a certain industry vertical or to a certain, let's say, level of management. That were all challenges that we wanted to solve with KanBo. And another thing is, when the Office 365 became popular, then we were rethinking the idea. And now what we've done so far in the last 3 years was to look at the Office 365 as shown by Chris, that we actually can, excuse me here. Okay. So if there is more services in the Office 365 that we could actually leverage in order to build a better context, in order to make our software, our concept, our philosophy work better. And this is actually what Chris said earlier. That means that we are, of course, scanning the landscape of Office 365 like every week or even a few times a week, in order to be informed, stay informed what's going on, what are the next features. But then there's a filter applied, a filter that actually where we can say, like, hey, there is something that actually pushes us forward, which makes the product better, which makes the philosophy better, but most of the stuff that is pushed out does not really affect, or that it has no effect from our perspective on the product. So just to let you know how we handle this, so we are not trying, to be and use everything that Microsoft develops and pushes. We rather go with a sense that we would like to use only the stuff that makes the philosophy and the working better, and that's why we choose carefully which features we use and how we integrate. But when we do that very deeply and really, as Microsoft says it, so according to the rules, like for example, the evergreen strategy, using the APIs and so on. So this is basically the how we integrate, and that's probably also the reason why we won this award, Best Office 365 add-in. Add-in is the new name for Office 365 apps, that we do not just extend one single tool like SharePoint or OneDrive or Teams or Word or Outlook. No, we extend the whole platform of Office 365 and provide something to manage your work. And this is an introduction from this high-level perspective, how we deal with this. And now let's jump into the demo. So what you see right now is the so-called KanBo Home. So we wanted to keep it as simple as possible. So what you see here, the colorful tiles are boards. Boards can be compared with SharePoint team sites or just digital rooms where things are stored, where things happen for a special for a specific topic. So when we see here, for example, building 51, that means that probably here you will find all the relevant information and the work that it's somehow connected to a building 51 when we are, say, in the building management business. Projects, probably a list of projects that are going on right now, and a board that I usually start with, since we come from Kanban. Kanban is a Kanban board. Is basically the long version of KanBo, and when you shorten it, then you have like KanBo, which stands for Kanban board. So that's where the name came from. So hey, KanBo.
I was just going to say that one of the ways that I use this to put this in perspective for people. So like moving between SharePoint, and I use in my company Microsoft Teams. Each of these boards, I might have multiple boards, or that I use for individual projects, which I may have sitting in and surfaced through a SharePoint site, so a team site. So I might be working with multiple teams, project teams, and we're leveraging SharePoint. I also might have a KanBo board that is within like a channel. I might have different boards for different channels for each of my customers. I could even have multiple boards for different projects for a single customer. And what's nice here is that this kind of home page gives me a roll-up of all of the boards that I'm a member of or I'm managing across all of those SharePoint sites, Microsoft Teams sites, wherever those boards exist. I get that roll-up and that portfolio view. So that's how I use this screen.
Yeah, that's basically what was built for. So basically, organizing your boards that are relevant to you. Let's say board stands for a larger context, as it can be a customized, it can be a project, a part of a project, a process. So that's why KanBo is so universal. And then you can organize these boards in so-called groups. Everything happens, of course, by drag and drop, also between the groups and so on. So that's how KanBo is built. And Kanban was actually developed to picture a process while it was happening. So when I jump now into this issue tracking, which is actually a ticket system or issue repair process, then you will see how KanBo is actually built inside. Because what you see here is now the board itself. So if you ever worked with Post-its and you on a whiteboard you draw a Kanban board, with those vertical lines, and you gave titles to the lists, then you probably realize that this is a similar physics. And what you do here, you just have those cards. We call them cards. So they could be Post-its. But of course, the Post-its here are endless, so they can store a lot of information. And what you can do with them, you can just move them through the process like that. Just by drag and dropping, you can actually visualize what you are working on. And if you look at it now from this perspective, this is a very busy board. It contains a lot of tickets, and you see people that are working on the cards. So the people that you see here on the front are the people actually responsible for each of those smaller contexts called cards. And you see the titles and also some specific information here, due dates and so on. At the top, you've got a timeline. So right now, all cards are out of time. So maybe when I change a date on a single card, maybe then we will see that something will appear on the screen above. So as you can see here, I set a due date to November the 23rd, and it is here on the board on the timeline. So the timeline is basically time perspective, showing you what's going on, what's due next. This is today, and what's overdue, and what will be next in the pipe from a time perspective. So this is basically how the board is built.
And that's another thing, just as far as day-to-day usage of this, where there is the calendar view up the top, so you can get that perspective, like, hey, what's coming up in the week or the month? And I find myself, and I was going to this view and looking at like what's coming up, but more and more having that visual cue at the top of the board, and seeing that, like tomorrow, the 23rd, there's an item that's coming up, and a reminder of what that is. It's great having that kind of quick jump to kind of keep your mind present about what is coming up.
So yeah, that's basically where KanBo starts to distinguish from other systems, because what we realized is the users were looking for something that can give you a lot of information at once. So you can basically, just watching it, you can process it, and you've got different aspects like time, of course, the lists that are helping you to group the process stages, and then the cards itself. And the card itself already tells you, for example, you've got like 3 subtasks done in this one. That's why this line is full and it's green. And here it is red because it's overdue, and 2 of 6 tasks. So you see, like, this is 100%. So you see, this is like also visualizing you a lot of stuff already before you even enter the topic. So basically, how KanBo is built is that you've got this first view, which is KanBo Home. Then you can dive deeper into a context like this one, where you see basically work. So that's why KanBo is called the real-time work management, because we are work-centric. So all collaboration, all information exchange should, from our philosophy, happen in the context of work. So that's why everything is put in those contexts. And then when you go deeper, let's say when we go in this one, when I open a card, so then you will see like the lowest level of a context, and this is where the magic basically happens. So what you see here is you see the elements of a context that you usually always need. So if this is now a ticket, so it's a problem with this website, right? It says here that the site is down. So what you will see here is, first of all, you will see like how many people are involved in this, and you also see by the size of the pictures here, you see who is really like responsible and who is basically a coworker. You see some kind of categorizing. So I will show you later. There's this functionality to filter. So basically, you can set your own categories, labels per board, in order to tag the cards with specific categories, in order to to filter later and do other stuff. And of course, the whole date time thing that you need when you work to somehow to place it somewhere on the timeline. But you've got several dates, like a start date, a due date, even a custom card date, and even a personal reminder just visible to you, so others will not see it. So all these elements are kept here in this time section. So this is like the left-hand side, where you've got the people involved, the categories, and the time. Then in the middle, of course, this is like the heart of the card. This is basically, it's a nice graphic here showing you actually something like a heartbeat. So what is captured here, and this is very important, there's a new trend now really establishing among companies. It's called working out loud. It means basically that you should inform others about what you're doing. What KanBo does here is it actually keeps all the information that were produced inside of this topic, which is obviously a ticket now because the site is down, is keeping it here. So it contains information like comments. So you are not sending emails actually anymore. You're basically writing here. You can also mention other people, so they will see that they were mentioned. They can jump in and see what's going on. But what's also important is, as you can see, like I call it the machinery. So also those information that are actually produced while you do something. So if you assign someone, or if you add a document, or if you move a card between lists, all this stuff is kept as a logbook of this context. So let's say this website is down again in a year, and can you imagine to find all the information in such a quality ever in any of your systems? Probably if you are having a specific system for issue tracking, yes, that's true. But imagine this wouldn't be now a ticket. It would be something different, like a task, or maybe a review of a document, or approval of an invoice. Like probably you have silos where you have the information exchange going in email, documented, all the versioning is in SharePoint, and maybe you also have got some meeting notes in another system. So what I'm saying is, this card is a container for context. So what it does, it actually naturally gathers all the information produced by humans by writing comments, by the mechanical just movements and things that happen here together. So whenever you open the card, it just shows you what happened, who did it, what was the decision, when it was made, and so on. So it's recording everything. So from now, I can even communicate with others. So let's say I would like now to ask someone who is basically not involved in the card. So you know it from Teams. I can mention him. So I would like to contact Rafael, because now I am logged on as Michael. So I am contacting Rafael. I'm doing something like this, like typing Rafael. And then like, can you help me with the task, with the last open task, right? So I just writing this. So now he's receiving the information. I will show you this in a second. And what I will do, I will add another task here, like task, which is open, and I will actually go ahead and even grab Rafael now, and I basically drag him and drop him on the task. So he's now assigned, so he gets another notification, and I can even go ahead and say like, please do this subtask until the end of the month. So it's going to be in 7 days. So let's now look from Rafael's perspective, how he has received what I just did in those few drag and drops. So I'm now switching the context to Rafael. Sorry, this is not Rafael. Rafael is basically, I think it's gonna be here. Yes, this is Rafael. So Rafael has received 37 notifications because it was from another demo. But let's view the last ones a few seconds ago. So you can see that I just wrote to Rafael a minute ago this here, and it says like it was in this context and in this board. So what Rafael needs to do is he just clicks on the context, and look what happens. He will just immediately have the same view of the situation, whatever the cards depicts, that I have, without losing any time on explaining where the task comes from, who created it, what was this path, what documents are in there, in which versions the documents are in. They're all in the current versions, and he can now see, okay, oh, there's this task, and then he will just write here, Michael, sorry, I will do it. So from my perspective, again, I received this notification basically in real time. This is another thing that I would like to demo here, what real time means. You probably, nowadays, this is nothing special anymore, maybe, but as you do things now on 2 different browsers and 2 different, let's say on 2 different continents, whenever something moves, whenever something changes, whenever someone writes something or even changes, something like this, all changes are reflected in real time over all devices and all computers. And it just depends on the view where you actually are, whether you will see it immediately or maybe you will see just like a number rising here saying like, okay, there was some movement now in the issue tracking or in the whereabouts and you haven't seen that. So that's how you see it. So basically, this is the magic of KanBo, where everyone is on the same page always whenever they look at it, and whenever you share information, the system forces you to put the information into the right context, so the right board, the right card, and creating new cards. And assigning people, like here I assign now Clint Eastwood, and moving the stuff is as easy as you can think. And whatever you do is being recorded. It's being recorded by the board, it's being recorded by the cards. So there's no way you would lose some information. So that's basically how KanBo works in the physics. Yes.
A couple questions here that are in context here, but so where does KanBo store all the information within Office 365? And maybe you could talk about that, and SharePoint on-prem versus Office 365, SharePoint online, how everything that you're doing is stored.
Okay, so let me begin it like that. So KanBo is an ASP.NET application with Signal R, which allows this real-time messaging. That's why things happen in real time. So KanBo stores the information in 2 places. One place is the OneDrive or the SharePoint, where it stores all the documents. So if this is a board, and if you go into the documents section, then you will see lots of documents. And these documents can be assigned to cards. This is what you already saw, like when I can just, for example, take this document and drag it on the new card. So now this document is connected, right? So when I open the card, you see here the document, but where is the document physically? Because this is only a reference. I can go ahead and, of course, open the document here and download it, whatever. But it's stored in SharePoint. Why? Because every time you create a board, a SharePoint site or a SharePoint object of your choice is being created as a shadow to this board where you store the documents. Of course, you've got the possibility to also connect existing sites or existing document libraries to be used inside of boards. And of course, one document library can be used by many boards, and logically, one document can be placed in many contexts through your organization, since you want to store it only once. So the documents are being stored in the SharePoint environment, and the cards, the comments, the lists, and all the stuff that moves very quickly is stored on in an SQL database. And of course, you can use the API to access the data, or even we've got features where you can connect, let's say, this board and have it synced with a custom list in SharePoint somewhere, because you want to do something from the SharePoint perspective, and it will be synced both ways. So things like that are possible. Of course, you have always to think like, why do you do it? I mean, is there any benefit if you really want to sync a SharePoint list, for example, with this board? That's another question. So also the user management is being synced automatically. So when we look at this board, you see, okay, all these users have access, right? So when you are the owner, because you've got like 3 groups of security in a board, you've got the owners, you've got the members, you've got the visitors, and whenever I add a user here, which obviously comes from Active Directory or Azure Active Directory or from Office 365, I mean, it depends on how it is installed. And then this user, when you put them into owners, it automatically gets on the corresponding SharePoint side the same level of permissions as in KanBo. So if you are a member, you cannot change the structure of the board. You cannot invite users. You cannot, change status or for example, you've got here labels that you can define. All this information are only for owners. The members can use it. The members can create cards, move cards, upload documents, and comment and work. And the visitors, basically like in SharePoint, read only of all the information that you've got in the board. But what we allow here in KanBo is the visitors can follow the cards, and they can also comment cards. So this is basically how we integrate into the Microsoft ecosystem. Of course, I'm not talking now about the Exchange integration, the syncing of tasks, the email to KanBo conversion and stuff like that. That's what I meant in the beginning, where we hook into the places which totally makes sense for us to hook in. If you receive an email, for example, in your Outlook, and you would like to attach it, let's say, to this card, you should do it in Outlook without even leaving Outlook. So there's this KanBo Outlook app, which basically allows you to see your boards, and then you can add the email to a card. And then while you're adding the email to a card, the email is being put apart. So all the documents that are attached will be uploaded to a corresponding SharePoint library and then attached to the card, and all the content of the email will be also put in the note. And the email itself in EML format will also be attached to the card. So basically, as we were developing the product, there were more requests from customers like, okay, can we use this container for context for different things? And of course, we have different sources where the information comes from. That's why we'd like to put them in a context. So maybe that's for answering the question how we hook in. Maybe now few ideas what KanBo can be used for. So let's say we have a vacancy management. So imagine you've got your open positions here, and now you can connect KanBo to an email address. So a board can be connected to a dedicated email address that you maybe have on your website. And whoever writes to that email, the email will be automatically transformed into a card. Attachments and so on, as I said, will be in the card. So basically, this is the entry point where all your CVs come in. And then a CV comes in, and then you can assign people that will be responsible for this candidate, and then you just go through the process, right? So interview, phone interview, interview with HR, final decision, and finally hire or whatever. If not hire, then maybe going into the card, you've got the possibility to archive a card, which makes it basically disappear, but each board has its own archive where all the archive cards are still accessible with all the information they ever created, even with the possibility even to send it back to a board. So this is a very quick overview. I mean, you can build this here within 5 minutes, just create another list like that, just drag and drop it somewhere in your process, give it a nice color, and then you've got another step in your process that everybody can see, and maybe this is going to be the one that was missing because you were working like that, and KanBo actually catches the reality pretty fast. So you don't need another Nintex workflow or whatever to be set up and deployed and so on. You can almost immediately react to a change of, I don't know, business, customer, market, whatever. So that's an idea. And maybe here it's also good to see how the filtering is working. So when I go to the filters and I click on labels, and I would like to see all the IT guys that we have one open position for IT, and as I can see, we've got 2 guys in the pipeline that are right now that were tagged with IT. So I can go here and see all the information that we have about this guy. So he's now on the interview stage, and maybe there will be some notes from the interviewees, like writing there, like what are his weaknesses, his strong sides, and so on. So I can even go and say, like, okay, I like this candidate. So what I'm gonna do is I'm go here and I'm gonna follow. So what it means, I will be explicitly informed here, even if I am not mentioned, about all the changes in this card. So when you, for example, attach a document here. So when I would go here and attach, let's say this document to this card, so then I'll be notified. If you open this document, even in SharePoint, right? Even in SharePoint, so without even touching KanBo, the versioning of the SharePoint functionality will send a message to this card, because now this document is being observed because it's a part of this context. It gets a notification here that this document was changed by person X to the next version. And that's because I'm following it. I will be informed because of a change of a document. And the guy who changed it, he would never know that he should send me an email that the document was changed, because he can not know that I'm interested actually not in the document, but in this whole context here, and this document is part of it. So by now you should realize that things are very complex. Even if you are maybe a 20 or 30 member organization, you will not be able to really understand all the complexity of your organization by this size. Imagine now 1,000 or 10,000 users. So actually the only way is to give users the possibility to choose what to follow and what not to follow, instead of receiving emails where everybody's in CC and you spend half of your day, chasing the information. Here, the information, basically you subscribe, that's important to you, and you unsubscribe if it's not important to you. And that's the beauty of the system. And of course,
here's a great example of that. My background, project management. When you have like a project management organization, a PMO that might have a bunch of centralized templates and things that are used across projects, you could even go in and create in a single card for a project, for a task that you own, and pull over the necessary templates and add that to like a list within your card. So as you're working through that, you can have a link to that. So if there's any updates to that centralized template, then it's then reflected. You'll see it automatically, so you always have the latest version of that template in the cards where you've added that shared resource. So you can actually have that template in dozens of different cards, so that you can, as I'm a project manager working on a task, I want to have all of the tools, all the content that I need to complete that task there within that card. But it's not creating copies. I'm accessing that centralized resource.
Yeah, and then this is what we realized years ago, that actually the speed how the documents are stored and the structure is much slower than the speed of a project or a process and so on. That's why we have decoupled the storage from actually assigning the documents to several contexts, cards and boards. That's why you only have one copy that is being used by many cards. And this is also a very nice feature that I use very often. So when I go to the documents, I can actually ask the document, please show me all the references. So I see that this document is being used now by 2 cards in vacancy management. Of course, if this document library is connected to many boards, then I would also see other boards that I have access to, of course, where this is used. So you basically can also navigate to the right contexts through the document. So you see there are many ways how you can access the information you need, but whenever you find it, it's always not a single piece. Actually, we'll find in SharePoint search. So you find a document, nice. You find a calendar, nice. You find a list item, very nice. But where is the connection? I mean, a document is created without any conversation, and the output that is being achieved is not just an output. There's a story to this. So basically, all the knowledge is lost somewhere. With KanBo, you keep it all together. So when you search for a certain topic, and basically when you find it, so like, okay, Nokia battery, zack, then you jump into it and you see, okay, this is not just, maybe a document or something. No, there were 2 documents, people involved, the whole history around it. I mean, the communication and so on. This is how you find knowledge that is contextualized. So let me continue now with another example of how you can use it. So what about a high-level perspective of projects? So let's say each of these cards has a connected board where actually when you go to the S-class flying card, you see there's a link board. When I click on the link board, it takes me to what is going on, let's say, on the daily, on the soldier level in this project. You see, like, okay, this is in the backlog, this is the quarter, okay, this month, and I mean, there's a planning going on right now. So this is basically the soldier level. But when you go back and you see, like, okay, this is the card representing the project. You see, like, who is responsible for the project and so on. So as someone who is actually want to review, let's say, 100 projects and manage them, you will not have the time to see what's going on in all of them. But you've got here something like progress, basically the milestones, and the guy reports, the project manager basically of this project reports to me by just writing here something like a blog, like, this is happening, we have a problem with this, with that. Then I can see that, and of course I can always see, like, how far they are. And whenever I want to look closer, I just dive in here and I see what's going on the soldier level. So this gives you the possibility basically to, you know, move your projects or maybe tag them with some tags in order to say, like, please show me now all projects where, let's say, that are now in a initiation phase and are, you know, coming and are marketing related. So what I do is I just go to filters and I go to status, I select initiation, and obviously I can see there's 2, and then I go to labels and I add, like, admin marketing. So you see, this is the only one that I was actually looking for. So now I jump in, and now I see all the information that I need about this. So basically there's no board created, and this is the budget, blah, blah, blah. So what I'm trying to say is that you can use KanBo for many things, and also by the end of the day, it's just about organizing information in a way so it's easily produced by others and also easily consumed by the other side. And by shorting this time and effort, you get productivity gains you wouldn't even dream of. But this is just a side effect of using this kind of philosophy. Another example here that is maybe also nice, it's the SAP CRM integration. So what you see here is actually a board where all of the users are just visitors. The chief here in this board is the SAP system. So if you imagine an SAP workflow for ordering machinery in the business of windmills, it's something that has 60 steps. Is it really relevant to the manager to watch in SAP in which step it is? It's 46 or 47? No. If you could just reduce it to the most important steps and actually push and create cards by SAP or by other systems here, so you have a single board which you can even display on the LCD or a watch, and then whenever you open a card, something like this here, then you could actually review. Let me make that a little bit bigger so you see what I'm talking about. So actually here you see that this card was being created by SAP, and someone in SAP actually, you know, typed in, created some offers that were received for this gear, and all the manager sees is actually an output, beautifully created string that is easy to read. And when the manager follows the card, he will even get this pushed on his mobile as, you know, something very complex is happening in SAP. And now look, in this very instance of this order of this wing here, there are 2 guys exchanging knowledge, right in the process. So basically KanBo here is a canvas that captures now an instance of an order that is being actually performed by another system. But this another system is hard to use, has a UI from 1980s, and doesn't have any social features. And what KanBo does, it gives it a place where even, look, Mr. CRM even is from Dynamics. Like there was something information that someone puts in there, but the guy who puts it in there in the system did not have a chance to understand what impact it has to organization. But in KanBo, you can leverage the search API, and then you can see like in what contexts the polling is being used, and in all those contexts it pushes actually this information. So whoever is following this very context get a full picture, regardless the boundaries of the IT system. So another great example of how important today the context is for survival, because otherwise you get blown by the information overload, right? So the last feature for today I would like to demo is the feature when you've got so many boards like I do here, or maybe if I switch now to this one, it's kind of hard to keep up with this. So what we came with is the idea of a my board, which is actually another board. But this board is different because this board contains cards from several boards or from other boards. So what I can do here is actually I see here there is a task for me. It's coming from the conference. In conference, it is, when I enter this card, it is in the board conference. It is in the list doing, and I am assigned. And this is what happened so far. But as you can see, it is already also in my board. So my board is a place where I manage my personal workload across all the stuff I am involved, processes, departments, whenever there is work or whenever there is something important, I can every time add a card to my board and have it somewhere. For example, I can have a list called observing, which is just, for me, like favorites, all the cards I need to keep an eye on without, having to navigate through my groups and the Kanban home, even though this is easy. And then my flow here, right? So this is where I wait for others. This is what I'm going to do next. This is where I'm waiting for, I don't know, for something. This is what I'm doing. This is what I've done. And I am the only person who can add cards here and who can actually move them. And as I move them along, the movement does not reflect the movement inside of the actual board, which is here the building 51, because this is the view of a perspective from a project or process, and this view, my view here, is my view. And so I am creating the list, I am moving stuff along, so I can organize the way I want and the way I plan. And the best thing about it is that we've got implemented even a higher transparency in here if your organization is ready. So what you can do here, I can invite others and give them access to my personal workload so people can see what I'm working on. And for example, my manager can check whether I've got the right priorities. And maybe I am drowning because I've got so much work and I shouldn't get any more. Actually, I should get unloaded. So the manager now can start helping me concentrate what I do best, my work, not, running around through meetings and trying, to satisfy everybody. I've got stuff to do. So please, my manager, have a look at my board, and I can do it. For example, when I go here on this guy and I see like, show me his my board. He hasn't shared it with me, so I don't see it. But I think I'll be able to see the my board of Rafal. Let me see this one. My board, also not sure. Okay. So when I access a board of someone who has shared it with me, of course the sharing can be forced. Then I'll be able to see the board. I'll be able to see the board of someone else. But I will not be able to change there anything because this is his property. This is where he manages stuff. So with this feature, I would like to end the presentation of KanBo. There's of course a lot more I could show, but I think I covered the philosophy, which is creating contexts. Navigate through contexts, the integration into the Microsoft ecosystem, and staying in touch with information that are important for you. And the last part was basically manage your own work stream where things move very fast and you have to change priorities. And this My Board basically reflects how you work, where you work, and what's the next stuff you do, where you're stuck. So if you open that, you gain more visibility. More visibility, more transparency means more productivity and less coordination and less energy for emailing and finding information. So that's basically what KanBo is about. And from my side, this is everything. And if you have any questions, please.
Yes. I think there are a couple questions out there. I'll just to finalize on this point too. I mean, it's one of the most powerful things about using KanBo is that for my small company, my employees, being able to go look across the tasks. So as I'm talking with an employee, just as Michael got it illustrated here, I'm going in and looking at. I may have a person that's working on 3 different projects and suddenly there are 20 different tasks that need to be completed today. That employee has the ability to go in and prioritize their work in that day, but then I can have a conversation with them when they share their My Board where I might then look and see, oh, you're definitely overloaded. Let's get some help in here around these tasks, or let's push back on some of these tasks and the due dates, so that it can be a realistic management of those activities. But I also will go in this even for myself, having that portfolio view and looking at the tasks that have been assigned to me across multiple projects all in one screen is tremendous value that's added. But Michael, probably I wanted you to, we've only got a couple more minutes here, though. Probably the number one, there's 2 questions I want you to answer before we wrap up here. One is you made the comment about when you're creating a new board, when you're deploying KanBo, that it's essentially, are you creating an Office 365 group? Is it then adding all of those resources? What if you're deploying KanBo, but you have existing team sites, existing Microsoft Teams, and you just want to add a board into those experiences? So maybe you could talk about what is deployed when you deploy KanBo. What assets, what's created, and where?
Okay, so it's really, so for right now we are creating SharePoint sites when you create a board. But in the coming releases, there will be a choice, which means this. You can either connect to any SharePoint site collection, group, or even nothing. So you will attach later. So KanBo will be just a canvas, and you can connect to whatever is existing in the Microsoft ecosystem, or you can create something new from a catalog like Office 365 group, a pure SharePoint site collection, or a subsite. So
again, just to clarify, so when you're deploying, so today, the product today, you deploy KanBo within a site collection, whether on-prem or online. And so when you're working with and inviting people into this, they then need to have access to that site collection, be members of that to be able to access those boards?
Oh, this is all done automatically by KanBo. So whenever you add a user here, if you go to the user management here at the top, and you say, and you say, add user at this moment. This is basically when you type in something, then, okay, I don't have any left users here, so that's why it's not showing. But actually, while typing here, I'm searching either the on-premise Active Directory, or the Azure directory, or the Office 365 directory. So whatever is the setup. And once I said add selected, in this very moment, KanBo takes care of everything. It adds the user to the site collection, and then of course you have to go on and add him to any spaces here in order to give him access, because otherwise he will not see anything, only the KanBo home screen, that's it. So this is how we manage that. Of course, if you add, have the user added already to an Office 365 group or team in Teams, and you create a board and connect it to that artifact, to that entity, obviously KanBo sucks out the user memberships and keeps this in sync, being the Office group or the Microsoft team the primary object that actually manages permissions, right?
And then final question here. We got one more minute here, but the last question, and then we'll wrap. And I know there's a couple other questions that we can respond to by email. But is a few people have asked, how does this compare to Planner? So Microsoft, of course, talking a lot about Planner. There's also Trello that's out there. Maybe very quickly you could talk about the differences with KanBo and Planner and Trello and kind of where it fits within the ecosystem.
Okay, so very quickly here. Planner is a good thing if you are a very small team and you are planning things that are not that very important. So because if in Planner someone deletes a card, changes a date, writes something into the card, nothing is being recorded. So you can just remove a card, it's gone. You cannot get it back. Nobody knows about that. That's it. And you cannot communicate within cards. So you can communicate via email or in Teams, but you cannot really communicate inside of the context of a task. And of course, there's limitations, like there can be not more than 2,500 cards assigned to you, even those which you have already done, because then you cannot assign the user anymore. And we've got a list that I can send out that's actually comparing those two products. And once you go through that list, you will understand where Planner basically is. It is basically a better Outlook task management made a little bit visual. It's nicely integrated into the Teams ecosystem. But once you want to have a context and reliable information, that's basically where you can jump over to KanBo, which is also supported by us. So, I mean, go ahead, start with Planner. When you reach those things that you're missing, there is a button inside of KanBo where you can just import the whole board with all the information into KanBo and just continue working KanBo. When it comes to Trello, Trello is basically outside of the Microsoft ecosystem. So whatever you store there, it is not on Azure. It is not controlled. So if you put a lot of effort on this newest requirements by the EU and stuff like that, which you can beautifully manage in the administration of Office 365, all of the information stored in KanBo are outside of this area. So it's not controlled. That's, let's say, security stuff. And of course, if you compare how a card is developed inside of KanBo and you compare a card of Trello and also the stuff that you can do, you will find that overall KanBo was built always with the business user in mind and with enterprises in mind. Trello comes more from this consumer and small business Silicon Valley way of thinking, and you will find it on various occasions when you look closer. That's what I can say for now, because there would be a lot of time needed to explain the differences.
Right. Well, thank you, Michael. If you want to give me control back, and I just got kind of the closing slides here. I know we're just slightly over on the time, and hopefully we've answered all of the questions that are there. If you have any, and let me share my screen there. Again, if you have any questions, one thing I would say as a next step, definitely go and take a look at the trial version. There is a sandbox version of KanBo, so you don't have to deploy anything. You can go and sign up on the trial site and leverage this cloud infrastructure and start playing with the sample data immediately, so you can try it for yourself. Of course, you can also download the trial, run it on your Office 365 or on-prem environment. So all that's out there available today. Also, if you'd just like to see a more detailed or specific personalized demo, so Michael and the team are happy to do that. So again, you can fill out the online form and request that and be very specific. Say, hey, here's the scenarios. This is how our organization works, our specific needs, where we have points of integration, and the team can address all of those things. And then finally, if you happen to be a Microsoft MVP or have someone in your organization that is, there are free licenses that are out there for MVPs. So other than that, Michael, thanks a lot for your time and for going through the detailed demo.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all for joining us today. And we'll sign off from here. And thanks a lot for attending.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.